my extraordinary privilege to introduce to you Jane Ziegelman.
Hello, everybody. As some of you know, this is my first book, and this is my first book talk on my first book. So to prepare myself for tonight's talk, I thought over the weekend it would be a good idea to do some immigrant cooking. I got out my cookbook collection, my old immigrant cookbooks, and I spent some time with them. And after much deliberation, the food I decided to make was schmaltz. That's true. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. For people in this room who don't know what that is, schmaltz is very simply rendered poultry fat. It can come from a chicken or a duck or a goose. And at one time, schmaltz was a really central food in the Jewish immigrant diet. In any case, I went ahead and I made my schmaltz, actually according to the instructions in the 1919 International Jewish Cookbook. And that night, my family sat down to a really quintessentially American dinner. It was sliced potatoes and onions fried in schmaltz with chicken tacos and guacamole. The variety of foods on that plate, old world, new world, north, south, I think goes to the heart of what American cooking is. And you could say that my book tells the history of what made, or part of the history of what made that meal possible. Tonight I'm going to be tracing the history of a few important immigrant foods, but before I do, I'd like to say a few words about the people behind the foods. These were the immigrants who came to the Lower East Side in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, who lived at 97 Orchard, just across the street, and who you'll meet in my book, 97 Orchard. I think when most people think of the Lower East Side, they think of it as the old Jewish ghetto, which in fact it was. But historically, Jews were really only one piece of a much more complicated picture. East Siders were also German, Irish, Romanian, Hungarian, Greek, Syrian, Italian, and numerous other nationalities. Your typical East Sider arrived in this country with a life savings of roughly $20 and possibly less. This person found work on the East Side, many in the local sweatshops and factories. Among the characters you'll meet in 97 Orchard are tailors and peddlers, garment pressers, candy wrappers, heel cutters, shoemakers, rag pickers, construction workers, and ditch diggers. In short, these were not people with either the resources or the time or the inclination to document how they lived. East Siders, as a rule, did not keep diaries, they did not publish their memoirs or collect their letters, for future generations. East Side cooks did not commit their recipes to writing. Well, this information vacuum that I'm describing left me with a problem. How do I research these people? How do I find out what they ate? The scarcity of what I think of as insider evidence, this is records produced by the immigrants themselves, meant that I had to turn to outsiders, most of them native-born, who came to the Lower East Side to observe the immigrants on their native turf. These were people of means. They lived in private homes with all the basic amenities, light, heat, water, a maid to do the cleaning, and a cook to make the food. In other words, they belonged to the culture of uptown Manhattan. This was, at this time, the city above 14th Street. In neighborhoods below 14th Street, 20 or 40 or 60 families, most of them immigrants, many of them poor, lived together under one common roof. They had few amenities and no privacy. Whole families often ate and slept and bathed and worked in the same small room, a positive nightmare to the well-bred New Yorker. Uptowners came to the tenements for a variety of reasons. There were charity workers, settlement workers, sociologists, missionaries, political reformers, including most famously Jacob Riis, journalists, and various types of government officials. One example from this last group were sanitary inspectors. These were employees of the New York Board of Health who were assigned to investigate tenement living conditions. And it is thanks to one of these roving inspectors that we have an early and extremely vivid description of one East Side culinary institution, the Tenement Poultry Farm. This was a business that flourished in New York from around 1870 to 1900. And I'm going to read an excerpt from this report. It comes from 1879. One who has only seen poultry kept in the country, where the only nuisance attributable to them is scratching up seeds, can hardly realize what a terrible nuisance they cause in the city. Where many fowls are huddled together in contracted quarters, they keep up an incessant clucking and cackling, and the odor that rises from them is overpowering. In New York, the Board of Health has carried on a struggle for some years, with occasional breathing spells for both combatants, against the practice of keeping poultry for sale in the manner practiced by Polish and Russian Jews. On the plea that their religion requires them to eat only those fowls that have been killed in their sight by a killer authorized under their ritual, they fill the places where they live with chickens, turkeys, ducks, and geese. These poor fowl are huddled together in coops or crowded into pens, generally in the basement of the house, and make an incessant noise. The smell, too, from 50 or 100 geese is indescribable and intolerable. And these people live in an adjoining room and wonder that any person finds their practice objectionable. I should point out here that Jews were not the only immigrant group to raise animals on the Lower East Side. Up until the 1860s, the East Side was home to literally thousands of Irish-raised pigs, animals that were set loose, this is true, set loose by their owners to forage in the street. Their prime feeding grounds were the curbs in front of butcher shops, fish shops, and vegetable markets. This was all highly offensive to the uptowner. But in fact, the pigs provided a valuable community service. Yeah, these were sort of the roving garbage disposals of the neighborhood. When the pigs were nice and fat, they were slaughtered, providing their owners with a windfall of basically free meat.